This video is brought to you by Brilliant. When Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva left office after 2 consecutive terms as Brazilian president at the beginning of 2011, he was riding high with record approval ratings of nearly 90%, and he was famously described by his US counterpart Barack Obama as the most popular politician on earth. But more than a decade later, and having dramatically returned to office in 2023, the magic appears to be fading, as Lula's approval has sunk to levels previously unseen in any of his administrations. So in this video, we're going to explain why Lula is increasingly unpopular, his looming succession crisis, and what it all means for Brazil as it heads towards the 2026 election. Explore which world leaders are winning and which are losing every week with our new podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. Find it over on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favourite podcast app. It's worth starting with a quick reminder of how Lula came to power the first time round, and why he was so popular. First elected in 2002 and taking office in 2003, Lula was Brazil's first leftist elected president in the post-dictatorship era. He was active and well regarded on the world stage. The Brazilian economy enjoyed robust and near constant growth, fueled by the global commodities boom of the 2000s, the windfall from which Lula used to expand social and economic programs, delivering massive reductions in poverty and hunger that helped him leave office in 2010 with sky-high approval. However, the decade that followed was disastrous for him and his Workers' Party. A severe economic downturn and a series of corruption scandals contributed to a political crisis that saw Lula's successor, Dilma Rousseff, impeached in 2016. Lula himself was imprisoned in 2018, having been convicted on corruption charges that were later quashed, and later that year, far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro was elected president. But, as you'll probably know, Lula was released from prison in 2019, pending appeal, and in 2021 his convictions were annulled and his political rights restored, paving the way for a stunning comeback which saw him defeat incumbent President Bolsonaro at the 2022 presidential election. So, what's been going on with his approval rating? Well, in January 2024, after a year in office, Lula's approval rating was at 51.2%, according to AtlasIntel polling for Bloomberg. This remained fairly steady for most of the year, but public disapproval was beginning to creep up, and his net approval turned negative in November 2024, sinking further as 2025 has progressed. The latest AtlasIntel data from last month puts Lula's net approval at minus 8.3 points, with nearly 54% disapproving of the president and 45.4% approving of him. Unfortunately for Lula, other recent polls paint a similar or even more negative picture. So, what's gone wrong? We're going to look at a few different factors, the first being the economy. Now, by some measures, things look all right for Brazil. The country has enjoyed 15 consecutive quarters of economic growth, with the economy growing 3.4% last year, and unemployment also falling through 2024, though it's been ticking up in more recent months. However, Lula's approval has been hit by stubbornly high inflation, which steadily increased through 2024 and surpassed 5% earlier this year, with the latest rate from May sitting at 5.32%, well above the 3% target. Back in March, one poll found that nearly 87% of Brazilians were very worried about inflation. And what's worse for Lula is the same poll found that the public, by a sizable margin, see his government's economic policies as being the main cause of spiking prices. Food inflation in particular has been a problem, with food and drinks nearly 8% more expensive in 2024 than in 2023, which naturally has a direct impact on people's lives and disproportionately hurts poorer sections of society, who form a crucial part of Lula's base. Polling shows that disapproval of Lula's government among the poorest economic group has surged from 26% last year to 49%. Similar surges in disapproval can be seen in other usually supportive groups, including women, black and brown Brazilians, and people in the northeast region, a left-wing stronghold. Now, it's worth saying that as part of his plan to mitigate the impact of rising prices on lower-income Brazilians, Lula has proposed exempting individuals earning up to 5,000 reais, nearly $900, per month from income tax. And this is a really popular policy. In fact, a lot of Lula's policies and actions actually poll well, But he and his government seem to have a real issue in that much of the population are simply unaware of his main initiatives. Quaest polling shows that on average 79% of those who know about the measures approve of them, but around 60% of the population is unaware. So a better communication strategy may well be key to clawing back some of his public approval. Additionally, inflation is tentatively heading in the right direction, with a slight slowdown last month thanks in part to slowing food inflation. However, there are other things that are hurting Lula's approval. For example, the unveiling of a major corruption scandal at Brazil's Social Security Institute, which police allege diverted more than $1 billion to several associations and unions through unauthorized deductions from the benefits of millions of pensioners. While the scheme reportedly started during the Bolsonaro presidency, its continuation and apparent growth under Lula is obviously damaging to Lula, especially when you consider that corruption is a sore subject for him and the Workers' Party given past cases. The eruption of the scandal in April has contributed to corruption jumping to the top of the list of what Brazilians consider the biggest problems facing Brazil in May, and likely undercut the slight recovery Lula had started to see in the polls the month before. So let's wrap things up by taking a look ahead at the 2026 presidential election. While Lula has not yet confirmed if he'll seek a fourth term, he has made numerous statements that indicate a willingness and desire to. Polling does suggest he would be competitive, but it's worth remembering that he will be nearly 81 years old by next year's election, and his current term in office has been marked by health complications and periods of hospitalization. There's an obvious parallel to draw here between Lula and former US President Joe Biden. Both men, veteran politicians, return to politics to, as Biden would put it, restore the soul of the nation after 4 years of hard right rule. But we probably don't need to recount how Biden's term ended. Ultimately, Lula is the patriarch of the Brazilian left and boasts an impressive electoral record. But neither he nor his party have cultivated a successor, leaving them without a concrete plan B if he opts not to run. That being said, it's not like things are any more put together on the Brazilian right. Former President Jair Bolsonaro, likely inspired by the return of Donald Trump, insists he will mount a return to the presidency, showing no intention of passing the torch to a successor, despite the fact that he's been barred from running and is currently on trial for an alleged coup plot. As for what the Brazilian people think, one recent poll suggests that 2/3 of the public do not want either Lula or Bolsonaro as presidential candidates next year. But whether either heed this remains to be seen. Like a lot of things right now, this topic is increasingly complex and ever-changing. And here at TLDR, we're committed to learning more to help us understand the world around us. Luckily for us, our sponsor this week, Brilliant, helps us do just this. We know that learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do, both for personal and professional growth. And Brilliant helps you get smarter in minutes a day. You can even perfect your skills wherever you are, whether you're on the go or winding down. It's the opposite of mindless scrolling. Brilliant has the perfect mix of engaging problems, competitive features, and daily encouragement that keeps you motivated and on track. For instance, Brilliant's data science content uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions. No matter your level of skill, these courses are perfect to start or continue learning data analysis, with a full suite of content covering data visualizations, algorithms, regression models, and more. Learn how to parse and visualize massive datasets from brands you know to make them easier to interpret. Plus, all content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from Stanford, MIT, Caltech, Microsoft, Google, and more. To try Brilliant for free, visit brilliant.org/TLDR, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description. By doing so, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know you came from us, which really helps us out.